Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all hear me?
Got you.
Hey, I got a question for Destiny, and I think Andrew can pick up off afterwards. So, based off of your 4 points that you gave for what would make an insurrection, uh, technically, none of your points make it necessary for there to be violence. You say in point three, force or intimidation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be violence. So, based off of that, wouldn't any legal protest where you're advocating for a certain political cause or anything like that in a public space, wouldn't that also, by your definition, count as an insurrection?
No, because I think that the intimidation part is important. The quote that I borrowed from here was from Justice Marshall in 1807. He said, quote, "The most comprehensive definition of levying war against the king or against the United States, which I have seen, requires an assemblage of men ready to act and with an intent to do some treasonable act and armed in warlike manner, or else assembled in such numbers as to supersede the necessity of arms." So I don't think you necessarily have to engage in violence, but I think that having the people there with the purpose of like intimidation and being ready to act with violence, I think is easily enough to satisfy
No justice,
element three.
like no justice, no peace.
You
Would
you would
not
have to
think
point to like you would have to point to a particular thing.
Yeah, I'll
like,
point
what are they- what
I'll
is
point
the-
to CHAZ Chop. So, do you think that if you were to take over a big portion, or even a small, tiny portion of a state, and consider it to now be neutral from the United States itself, that becomes a federal matter?
I don't know. Is that what was it considered a federal matter?
Well, don't you think that that is resisting federal law? If you make the claim we are seceding this area from the United States, how would that not be federal?
Were they seceding it from the United States?
That's what
were
they claimed.
seceding it, or were they seceding it from Washington or whatever?
What?
Were they seceding from the United States of America, or were they
Yes.
seceding from like the
They
state
said
or the
that
city?
this is a neutral
so they
zone.
no
We are
longer accepted
seceding.
USD. They no longer employed or recognized.
I'm not sure
like,
that
interstate
even if you were
travel
to
or-
have a succession or a secession, that would mean you couldn't accept USD anymore.
Okay,
Like
I don't
why
know
would that?
enough-
Why would that matter?
Because it seems like if you're going to secede from a country, it feels like part of that would be like establishing your own government, establishing your own like foreign
Yeah, but
relations
you can
and
still
ambassadors.
have USD, and they did. They were trying to do that. They had their own armed militant group who was there armed, definitely intimidating, refused to allow people to come in and out of the zone. They were trying to start their own economy, their own gardens. They had annexed the buildings which were around them. That definitely seems like they're resisting federal law. You're not allowed to secede in the United States. That's a big no-no.
I don't remember this being. Can you tell me what statements or what they made? I don't know the details of this. What did they make, or what statements did they make about federal secession?
Yeah, so CHAZ Chop, they considered it the neutral zone. There was multiple statements made that this is no longer part of the United States.
By
We
who?
are taking this over just by the people who were there.
By the people. So if a random person says a particular thing, that because I thought you said earlier.
Well, I
that we
mean, if a
couldn't read
random
intent
person
into the
takes a
Donald
baseball
Trump
bat to
crowd.
someone, you call it a
You said
secession.
earlier that we couldn't read intent into the Donald Trump crowd, despite the fact that people were hanging signs saying 1776, hang Mike Pence, and the statements that Trump had made. But I
Yeah,
can ascertain
you say such an inference is fine. So this is
I
again.
didn't. I said the inference is fine.
Well, wait
because
a
of the
second. This
collection
is
of
the
statements that
same
Donald Trump
as
had
an
made,
internal-
collecting the people there for a given
Bro, that
purpose
makes no
they
sense.
actually managed to succeed in doing.
Yeah,
It makes
you
perfect sense.
just
I can
be
lay it out
talking
for
over
definition
me
if you
before
want.
I can make the point doesn't help your point. No, it actually doesn't make any sense. Because your claim is that you can read into the hearts and minds of these people based on what you perceive their actions to be. It's like, okay, fair enough. So if the people who are there are doing the exact same thing, they're saying, okay, this is now a neutral zone. We're seceding from the United States of America. Why can't we read that into their actions as well, Destiny? It makes no sense.
I would absolutely do that if but I don't know of any statement like that. And you can't name a single one. So I don't know what I'm supposed to go. I don't know what I can work
If
off of.
CHAZ Chop, if there was such a statement, let's just assume that there was for a second, would you then consider that to be an insurrection?
If they said that we are going to secede from the United States of America and they had like some organized violent wave and all the other elements were met, then I'd say, yeah, this would count as an
Okay.
insurrection. Easy, sure, easily, of course.
Gotcha. All right.
But you wouldn't say the same for January 6th, so because you haven't given a definition of insurrection, but that's the difference between good faith and bad faith.
No. That's not bad faith for me to do an internal critique in your definition when I can at least take your definition and say, wait a second, all of these apply to a different category. And that was
but you're
established very well.
You're critiquing my definition without even having a
I
definition.
don't
of your
need to
own.
have a definition to
You
critique
do.
yours. That's absurd.
You can't.
That's
no,
illogical and
But
absurd.
the debate. Stop using illogical. It doesn't mean anything. You're abusing the word. Okay. The
What is it?
debate
Well,
was
what does it
whether or
mean?
not the debate was over whether or not January 6th was an insurrection. If you
Uh-huh.
only came to that debate to critique my position, and I shouldn't even let you get away with this. You said earlier that you were neutral on it. You're not neutral on it. The answer for you is you can't compute the question. It's undefined. You don't have a neutral position. If you don't have a definition of insurrection, you can't possibly take a position. It's like dividing by zero. The answer is not neutral or nothing.
Again,
you just have an undefined
well, I know
position
you
on it because
don't
you
like
even have
this.
a definition of a term.
Yeah, I know you hate this, but
that is true. I
is
don't like arguing with the person
illogical.
that doesn't
That's
have-
actually an illogical statement to say that I would need to have a definition of anything to critique your definition of it if I have something else that I can make a comparison to that fits with better that you agree it fits better in. I don't know why you don't get that.
Just okay, what would your position be on if I were to ask you, is January 6th
What the fuck? Are you okay?
What's your answer to that? Is January
Did you just
6th,
go blah, 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 blah?
Why? I'm asking you, was January 6th a what's
Why-
your answer to that? Would you say you're neutral on that?
Why? That would be incoherent. I wouldn't even understand what you're saying.
Thank you. I agree. Yes. Insurrection, that term is incoherent to you because you have no definition for the word. So I'm uttering nothing to you. When I say insurrection, you have no way to compute the question. So you can't say that you're neutral on it. The same way you can't say you're neutral on it being
Well, I don't know. I don't know how fucking
insurrection because you have no
I don't know how
definition for
language
insurrection.
works then when you say, okay,
Apparently not.
this is a Snicker bar, and I don't know what a Snicker bar is, but I can't make comparisons to other things so that I can at least understand where you're coming from with what a Snicker bar is. Okay, Destiny.
That's correct. That is correct.
That's absurd.
What if I showed you a bar and you're like, that's not a Snicker bar. That looks like a chocolate wafery thing with caramel on it.
Yeah, if it fit the criteria, that's
Yes,
isn't that great how that works?
Actually,
if things
this fits
fit other
way
criteria better.
with a Milky Way. That's actually way more like a Milky Way. No, it's not quite a Milky Way. It's a Snicker bar. And you're like, well, I don't
Well,
even
then
have
it
a
would
definition
fit
of
that
it. Okay.
criteria of a Snickers bar, the ontology of a Snickers
Well, you
bar,
wouldn't
better
know.
than
You
the
don't have an
ontology of a Milky
Snickers
Way.
bar. You don't have that ontology is not existent for you because it's undefined. You have no definition of what a Snickers
You
bar
wouldn't
even
need.
is.
You don't need to have a definition for
You
you
need to
to
have a
understand an
definition of a
ontology
thing.
of a new concept. What are you talking about? That's
Can't
crazy.
We're arguing over whether a thing is a thing, whether A is B, and for you, B is undefined. So you can't even be agnostic on the question. You can't compute it. It's gibberish to you, like when I utter gibberish.
No, this is gibberish to me. This makes no sense. Why? There's
I know.
absolutely no reason why, if you've never, even if you were to grant, I'd never even heard the term insurrection before, that I couldn't understand if you came up with a term for insurrection. I said, well, fit this other criteria better, why it is that you couldn't concede that that was true. That's this absurd logic. And yes, Destiny is illogical.